Hey everybody, and welcome back to Sip and Talk. All right, so have you heard about those Tarahumara people down in Mexico?
Yeah, vaguely. I know they're known for running, right?
Running's putting it mildly. These guys are like the ultimate long-distance runners.
Yeah.
Like running for 2 days straight, covering something like 300 miles.
300 miles? That's insane. What's their secret? Do they, train super hard or have some special diet?
That's the crazy part. No fancy stretching routines, no protein shakes, no high-tech gear. They just run. It's mind-boggling.
Makes you wonder what we're doing wrong with all our fancy gyms and gadgets, huh?
Exactly. So for today's deep dive, we're going to explore this whole human knack for long-distance running. Why are we, as a species, so good at it?
Sounds fascinating. Where are we getting all this info from?
We've got a bunch of sources, a YouTube video discussing this book called Born to Run, plus some text excerpts about human running.
Born to Run. Catchy title. All right, so we're basically trying to figure out why humans seem to excel at running based on all this stuff.
You got it. Mission accepted. So let's start with these Tarahumara folks. They live way down in Mexico's Copper Canyons, super traditional lifestyle.
Like cut off from the modern world, kind of traditional?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And a huge part of their culture is these long-distance races between villages. I'm not talking your casual 5K here.
Hold on, you said they run for 2 days straight. How long are these races exactly?
We're talking hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
Across incredibly rugged mountains. Seriously intense stuff.
Whoa, mountain trails. That's next level. So what do they wear? Like super high-tech trail running shoes?
That's where it gets interesting. There was this ultra marathon where some organizers got shoe companies to sponsor the event, even gave the Tarahumara free shoes.
Free shoes? I bet they were stoked.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But halfway through the race, a bunch of them started dropping out.
Why? Were they just not used to that kind of competition?
Nope. It was the shoes. They were used to running in their traditional horoks, basically sandals made from old tires.
Old tires. Seriously.
Yeah. Super minimalist, thin soles.
Huh.
Those modern shoes were messing with their natural running style.
Wow, that's crazy. So what happened next?
The organizers learned their lesson. The next year, they held another race with elite marathon runners and the Tarahumara. They wore their horoks.
So tire sandals versus fancy running shoes. Who won?
You guessed it. The Tarahumara dominated. First, third, fourth, fifth, and seventh place. All them.
No way! That's incredible.
And get this. Eyewitnesses said they were practically floating, gliding over the trails. And after 10 hours of intense running, they were still smiling like it was a walk in the park.
While the other runners were probably gasping for air.
Totally wiped out. So this whole thing caught the attention of this American ultra-endurance running coach named Virgil.
What did he make of all this?
Well, Virgil was a big deal. National Coach of the Year, coached the U.S. Olympic team, the whole 9 yards. And what he saw with the Tarahumara really challenged his beliefs about running.
Like what specifically blew his mind?
He noticed all sorts of unthinkable things. Women outrunning men, older folks beating younger ones, and barefoot runners crushing it against those with fancy shoes.
That does go against the grain, doesn't it? I mean, we're always told we need good shoes and proper training to avoid injuries.
Yeah, the common wisdom was that high mileage equals knee problems. But the Tarahumara were doing ultramarathon distances and seemed perfectly fine.
So were they just genetic freaks or something?
That's what Virgil wanted to know. He started studying their running and their culture.
And what did he find out?
One of the first things he noticed was how much they genuinely loved running. For them, it wasn't a chore like it is for so many people.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes it feels like I'm punishing myself when I go for a run.
Totally. But for the Tarahumara, it was almost meditative. They had this term, "yu," which basically means running in a Zen state.
Zen state? Like they were just in the zone, totally present.
Exactly. They'd get into this flow, focusing on their breath and movement. Nothing seemed to distract them. It was like a moving meditation.
That's pretty cool. Makes running sound way more appealing.
Right. And the book suggests that this decline in American long-distance running, like our enjoyment of it, kind of coincided with the sport becoming more commercialized.
Commercialized? You mean with all the sponsorships and shoe companies getting involved?
Exactly. Virgil felt like running was an art that had turned into a business. And that shift in focus, from love of running to chasing goals and sponsorships, might be why so many people started to dislike it.
Interesting point. So if the joy gets sucked out, what's left?
Right. It becomes all about the external rewards, not the inherent pleasure of running itself.
Makes sense. So what's the true purpose of running then, if it's not about winning races or getting sponsors?
Virgil came to believe that both love and running are these innate human abilities, like hardwired into our DNA from our hunter-gatherer days.
Survival instincts, huh?
Totally. Running was essential for survival back then, finding food, escaping danger. Think about little kids. They run around like crazy just for the pure fun of it.
That's true. They don't need a gym membership or a fancy treadmill.
They just love to move.
Yeah.
But as adults, we often need some external motivation, some goal to chase. And if we don't reach it, we get discouraged.
I see. So we've kind of lost touch with that primal joy of running that comes naturally to us.
Exactly. Okay, so now for the million-dollar question, how were those Tarahumara runners so much faster in their basic sandals compared to those pros in high-tech shoes?
Yeah, that's a head-scratcher. You'd think those fancy shoes would give them an edge.
Well, the book makes this bold claim. Modern running shoes might actually be contributing to a lot of foot and knee injuries.
Hold on, isn't that the opposite of what they're supposed to do?
This Harvard professor, Danny Lieberman, he says that all that support and cushioning might actually be weakening our feet.
Weakening them? How so?
It's like our feet have all these amazing natural mechanisms for shock absorption and stability, but when we rely too much on supportive shoes, those mechanisms kind of get lazy.
So it's like we're overprotecting our feet and they become weaker as a result.
Exactly. And the book points out that before modern running shoes came along in the 70s, people mostly ran in thin-soled shoes or even barefoot.
Barefoot, like on pavement and everything?
Well, they probably weren't running marathons on concrete, but the point is they weren't relying on all this extra cushioning.
And were they getting injured as much?
Actually, the book says that knee and foot injuries were much less common back then.
Wow, that's fascinating. It really challenges our assumptions, doesn't it?
It does. There's even this story about the Stanford University running team. They had a sponsorship deal with a big shoe company.
So, free shoes for everyone. Did they love them?
You'd think, right? But when the company reps came to a practice, they were shocked. Most of the runners were training barefoot.
Barefoot? Seriously?
Yeah.
Why?
The coach believed that humans were naturally designed to run that way. All the extra stuff in modern shoes was actually messing with their natural foot mechanics.
So he was a less is more kind of guy.
Basically, he found that strengthening their feet through barefoot training actually reduced injuries.
So what kind of research backs up this whole shoes are bad idea?
Well, the book highlights three main findings. First, they call it bad news number one. The most expensive running shoes were actually linked to more injuries than cheaper ones.
Wait, what? That doesn't make sense.
A Swiss study found that the price of the shoes was a bigger factor in injuries than things like running surface or speed.
So more money doesn't necessarily mean more protection.
Nope. And bad news number two, as shoes wear out and lose cushioning, runners naturally adjust their gait and land more stably.
So those old beat-up shoes might be doing us a favor.
Maybe. And finally, bad news number three, a shoe company's own research showed no difference in impact forces between hard and soft-soled shoes. And get this, softer soles might actually increase the peak impact because your foot is searching for that solid ground.
It's like trying to run on a trampoline. Your foot just sinks in and then has to work harder to stabilize.
Exactly. And they did an experiment filming people running barefoot in thin-soled shoes and in cushioned shoes.
Yeah.
And with each type of footwear, the body changed its running posture.
How so?
The thicker the sole, the harder the foot struck the ground, like it was searching for something solid to push off from.
So our feet are naturally designed to handle impact, but we're messing with that by adding all this extra cushioning.
Right. Our feet are amazing. The arches, the bones, the ligaments, all working together as a natural shock absorber.
Like a perfectly engineered bridge.
Exactly. So is the book saying we should all ditch our shoes and go full-on barefoot?
Not necessarily. They're not saying shoes are inherently evil. It's more about those overly supportive, heavily cushioned shoes that are the problem.
So like those barefoot-style shoes with minimal soles might be a good option.
That's what they suggest, letting our feet work the way they were designed to.
Makes sense. Okay, but if we're not supposed to run in thick-soled shoes, how come we're so good at running in the first place? I mean, compared to other animals, we're not exactly known for our speed.
That's the big evolutionary question, right? How did humans on two legs become such successful endurance runners?
We're not outrunning a cheetah anytime soon, that's for sure.
Nope. But it turns out we have a bunch of unique anatomical features that make us endurance superstars, like our Achilles tendon, for example. Apes don't have that, and it acts like a super strong spring, giving us that bounce in our step.
So that's what gives us that springy, efficient running style.
Exactly. And we have arches in our feet, short toes for pushing off the ground, strong glutes for stability and power.
It's like all these little evolutionary upgrades that add up to make us awesome runners.
Precisely. And don't forget our amazing cooling system. We sweat like crazy, which means we can regulate our body temperature much better than most animals.
It's like having built-in air conditioning.
Exactly. This allowed our ancestors to use a technique called persistence hunting. They'd chase prey animals like antelope in the heat of the day.
Even though the antelope were faster.
Right. But the antelope would overheat and collapse, while our ancestors could keep going thanks to their superior sweating.
So we literally ran our food into the ground. Wow, that's intense.
It really highlights how vital endurance running was for our survival. This Professor Bramble, he said denying our ability to run is like denying a part of our history and our very nature.
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
So it's not just a hobby or a sport. It's literally in our genes.
Exactly. And research shows that our running ability doesn't decline drastically with age. It's more about whether we choose to keep running or not.
So use it or lose it applies to running too.
Absolutely. And get this, endurance running is linked to preventing a ton of modern diseases. Heart disease, diabetes, depression, even some cancers.
It's like our ancestors had this secret weapon against all those health problems.
Right. But if running is so great for us, why do so many people hate it? It seems like a contradiction.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who would rather do anything else.
Well, Professor Bramble has this theory about our brains. He says they're wired to conserve energy. Back in the day, running was essential for survival, but now our brains see it as unnecessary energy expenditure.
So our brain is like, dude, why are you running when you can just order pizza?
Laughs. In a nutshell, yeah. But the Tarahumara, they still run for the pure joy of it, tapping into that ancient instinct.
They haven't lost that connection to what makes us human.
Exactly. And the book argues that running isn't just for elite athletes or hardcore enthusiasts. It's a fundamental human activity, a symbol of freedom and connection to our past.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we've forgotten how good it can feel to just run.
Right. And there's so many other fascinating things about running, like the man versus horse marathon.
Wait, what? There's a marathon where people race against horses.
Yep. And sometimes humans actually win. It really shows our endurance capabilities.
Wow, I'd love to see that.
And here's another interesting tidbit. Running at a moderate pace can actually be more energy efficient than walking. Seriously. But it feels way more tiring.
It's because of the spring-like action of our legs and tendons. They store and release energy more efficiently when we run.
That's pretty cool. And what about that guy who ran a marathon at 100 years old?
Fauja Singh.
Yeah.
Incredible, right? He shows that age is just a number when it comes to endurance.
Totally inspiring.
Yep.
What about barefoot running? It seems like it's getting more popular.
There's definitely a debate around it. Some say it's more natural, helps prevent injuries, but others worry about sharp objects and lack of cushioning.
Yeah, you got to be careful where you step.
Definitely. And did you know that running is actually good for your brain?
Really? How so?
It stimulates the production of this stuff called BDNF, which helps with memory and mood. It's like a natural antidepressant.
So that runner's high is a real thing.
Absolutely. It's not just in your head. Okay, so to sum up, we humans are built to run long distances. We have all these evolutionary adaptations that make us endurance superstars. Right. Our ancestors relied on running for survival, and they often found joy in it. But we, in our modern world, have kind of lost touch with that.
And modern running shoes, while they seem helpful, can actually mess with our natural foot mechanics.
Makes you think twice about those fancy shoes with all the bells and whistles.
So here's a final thought for you. How has our relationship with running changed over time? Could we benefit from reconnecting with a more natural approach? Maybe even trying barefoot running on safe surfaces?
What kind of shoes, or no shoes, would best support our own unique running ability? It's something worth pondering.
Definitely. It's all about finding that balance between modern technology and our ancient instincts.
Well said. That wraps up another deep dive. Before we go, we wanted to give a shout out to our buddy Micky.
Oh yeah, Micky. What's he up to these days?
He's got a YouTube channel called Mickytolife. He does travel vlogs, whiskey unboxings, and even shares his original music.
Sounds like a fun mix. I'll have to check it out.
You should. He's a talented guy. All right, folks, until next time, keep exploring and keep running.
Happy trails.